Rajeev Khanna, Meera Khanna, and Arjun Malhotra, three names that once stood for success, love, and loyalty, are now etched in one of Mumbai's most chilling double murder mysteries. When a perfect marriage unravels into betrayal and bloodshed, the line between justice and revenge disappears. This is the shocking true crime story of how a devoted husband, a secret affair, and a brutal plan led to two lives lost, and one man who vanished without a trace. Rajeev Khanna was a name that carried weight in Mumbai's elite business circles. In his mid-40s, he had worked tirelessly to build his import-export company from the ground up. From humble beginnings in a middle-class family, he rose through sheer will, intelligence, and relentless drive. His company now handled high-value shipments across continents, and his face had been featured in business magazines more than once. His success allowed him a life of comfort and privilege in a luxurious bungalow in the upscale Juhu neighborhood, where he lived with his wife Meera and their 10-year-old daughter, Anya. Meera was everything Rajeev's social status demanded. Educated, beautiful, and poised, she carried herself with quiet sophistication. She was often seen at charity galas and art exhibitions, mingling with the who's who of Mumbai society. Always impeccably dressed and graceful in conversation, she had become a respected figure in her own right. The couple's public appearances were polished and warm, the image of a well-balanced marriage. Their daughter Anya was enrolled in one of the city's top international schools, excelling in academics and dance. To the outside world, the Khanna family seemed flawless, successful, close-knit, and enviably content. Rajeev often credited much of his business success to his longtime friend and partner, Arjun Malhotra. They had met during their MBA days and stayed connected ever since. While Rajeev was sharp in logistics and finance, Arjun was charismatic and shrewd in negotiations. The two complemented each other perfectly, turning their partnership into a powerhouse that dominated the sector. Arjun, a bachelor in his early 40s, was a regular guest at the Khanna home. He shared a friendly bond with Anya and was known to spend weekends at the bungalow, either discussing work or enjoying late-night dinners with Rajeev and Meera. There were no secrets between them, or so Rajeev thought. Beneath the glossy surface, small cracks had begun to appear. Rajeev had noticed Meera growing distant, but he dismissed it as the inevitable drift that comes with years of marriage. He was often away on business trips or buried in meetings, and Meera had her own busy calendar filled with events, fundraisers, and social obligations. She would sometimes come home late, citing charity board meetings or errands. Her phone, once casually placed around the house, was now always with her, locked and silent. Despite the subtle changes, Rajeev refused to see them as signs of anything serious. He trusted Meera implicitly. She had stood by him when he had nothing, when he was just a man with a dream and a borrowed laptop. They had built their life together. There was no reason in his mind for suspicion, but trust can be blinding. And in Rajeev's case, it made him overlook the things that would have alarmed a less confident man. The extra glasses on the wine shelf, the scent of unfamiliar cologne in the guest bathroom, the hushed phone calls late at night. He noticed them but never questioned them. He believed what he wanted to believe, that his life was perfect, that his marriage was unshakable, that loyalty, once earned, could never be broken. He had no idea that the two people he trusted most were about to destroy everything he had built. The affair between Meera and Arjun didn't begin with intention. It was born out of quiet glances, lingering silences, and moments of vulnerability that neither of them admitted at first. During a business trip to Singapore arranged for a major partnership deal, the three of them, Rajeev, Meera, and Arjun, had shared several late dinners and long days in hotel conference rooms. One evening, Rajeev had to excuse himself early due to a migraine, leaving Meera and Arjun alone at the hotel bar. That night, something shifted. What began as light conversation turned into a deeper exchange. Meera spoke of loneliness, the pressure of perfection, and how distant Rajeev had become. Arjun listened closely, perhaps too closely. The connection was instant, intense, and dangerously easy. Back in Mumbai, their meetings became more frequent. At first, it was subtle, a coffee after a charity event, a ride offered after a meeting, a few texts late at night, but the boundaries blurred quickly. The comfort they found in each other soon grew into desire. It wasn't long before they began meeting in secret, in upscale hotels and rented apartments far from the eyes of their social circle. Meera, once deeply rooted in appearances and respectability, was now navigating a double life, effortlessly juggling her role as a wife and mother with her hidden romance. Arjun, too, became increasingly consumed by the affair. Though he had always been loyal to Rajeev in business, his personal involvement with Meera began affecting his judgment. He started skipping meetings, making decisions without consulting his partner, and even moving funds quietly to prepare for a future that was not supposed to exist. In his mind, he began imagining a life with Meera, free from secrecy, from guilt, from the confines of their current lives. Meera, however, was torn. While she had convinced herself that her love for Rajeev had faded, she was still deeply entangled in the life they had built. Anya was her world, and the thought of shattering her daughter's sense of family haunted her. Yet with every passing week, she became more emotionally dependent on Arjun. He made her feel seen, desired, alive, things she hadn't felt in years. She rationalized her actions by blaming Rajeev's emotional absence and his obsession with work. She convinced herself she deserved happiness. They both believed they were being cautious, but in truth, their affair was becoming sloppy. Hotel staff began to recognize them. A neighbor once mentioned seeing Meera with a man who wasn't her husband, and yet they continued, convinced that their love was worth the risk. They even discussed the possibility of coming clean, though neither of them had the courage to act on it. As the affair deepened, so did their carelessness. Meera began deleting messages and call logs obsessively. Arjun started using a second phone. They thought they had covered their tracks. They thought their secret was safe. But secrets like theirs never stay hidden forever, and each meeting, each lie, each stolen moment was one step closer to a disaster they never saw coming. The day Rajeev received the wrong email was the beginning of the end. It came from Arjun's office, an internal update meant for Meera regarding a property investment. The tone was informal, too familiar. Rajeev read it once, then again. A line thanking Meera for handling things last night didn't sit right with him. He tried to dismiss it, telling himself it was probably related to one of her charity projects, but something didn't feel right. That night he barely slept. For the first time, his trust began to crack. Over the next few days, Rajeev started paying closer attention. He began noticing patterns he had previously ignored. Meera's sudden habit of locking her phone, her brief disappearances during family functions, and the way she avoided eye contact when he asked simple questions. Rajeev didn't confront her. Instead, he began gathering information in silence. He contacted a private investigator discreetly, someone with no ties to his business or social circle. He kept it short and direct: follow my wife, document everything. Within 2 weeks, Rajeev had the truth laid bare in a folder he couldn't bring himself to open at first. But once he did, there was no turning back. There were stamped photographs of Meera entering and exiting hotels with Arjun hand in hand. Receipts from luxury apartments rented in Arjun's name. Call logs that stretched for hours, some placed just minutes after he had left the house. Rajeev read through every detail with a strange detachment. His world wasn't just breaking, it was rearranging itself in front of him. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was total. His wife, the woman he built a life with, his best friend, the man he trusted like a brother. He felt like a stranger in his own home. He didn't tell anyone, not his family, not his employees, not even his lawyer. He acted normal, maybe even calmer than usual. He kept going to work, having dinner with Meera, and attending his daughter's school events. But behind his silence, a storm was building. Rajeev wasn't planning a divorce. He wasn't planning to forgive. He was planning something else entirely. He began monitoring their movements himself. He would leave for business trips but stay in the city, watching from a distance. He followed Arjun once and saw him driving to the same apartment captured in the investigator's photos. He noted every time Meera lied to him about her whereabouts. The final confirmation came late one night when he came home early and saw Arjun's shoes at the entrance. something so mundane yet so damning. That night, Rajeev sat alone in the garden, staring at the sky for hours. Something inside him had shifted permanently. There was no shouting, no confrontation, no demands for answers, just a deep, hollow silence. He knew he couldn't let it go, not because of pride, but because something sacred had been destroyed. And what had been broken wasn't just a marriage or a friendship. It was his very sense of identity. Rajeev Khanna, the man who built everything, had just realized he had lost everything. The murder of Arjun Malhotra sent shockwaves through Mumbai's business community. He was found sprawled on the marble floor of his high-rise apartment in Lower Parel, his body covered in deep, deliberate stab wounds. The scene was chaotic, the room ransacked, but oddly, nothing of major value had been taken. There were no signs of forced entry, which led police to believe the attacker was someone Arjun knew, someone he let in without hesitation. The media erupted with speculation. A high-profile businessman murdered in his own home. Theories flooded the news: business rivalry, a robbery gone wrong, a secret deal turned sour. No one suspected anything more personal, not yet. Less than 24 hours later, news broke of another death, this time Meera Khanna. Her body was discovered in the couple's Juhu bungalow, lying peacefully on the living room couch, a glass of red wine still on the table beside her. At first glance, it seemed almost serene, but toxicology reports would later confirm the presence of cyanide in her bloodstream. It was quick, lethal, and untraceable in taste. Administered in a drink she most likely consumed without suspicion. Unlike Arjun's brutal killing, Meera's death was silent, calculated, and eerily clinical. The contrast suggested a different emotional tone, a different kind of message. Investigators were baffled. Two sudden deaths, linked by personal and professional relationships, but no clear motive. Yet those closest to the victims knew the connection: Rajeev Khanna. By the time police tried to contact him, Rajeev had vanished. His phone was off, his office was shut down, his driver hadn't seen him in 2 days. He wasn't at home, and none of his employees had any idea where he had gone. His sudden disappearance only deepened suspicion. Search teams were deployed, airports were alerted. His passport, however, remained untouched in his study drawer, raising even more questions. Investigators searched the Khanna residence thoroughly and discovered that surveillance footage from the night of Meera's death had been wiped. Not just deleted, but professionally scrubbed. It wasn't a simple mistake or power failure. Someone had intentionally covered their tracks. At Arjun's apartment, the digital security system had also been disabled an hour before the murder, and there were no fingerprints on the murder weapon. Friends and family were in disbelief. Just days before, they had attended a charity gala where Meera and Rajeev appeared as the picture of grace and elegance. No one had suspected the turmoil that had been brewing beneath the surface. Those who had once admired their relationship now whispered behind closed doors. Something had gone terribly wrong in what once looked like a perfect life. The media labeled it a double murder rooted in betrayal. Some believed Rajeev had discovered the affair and acted out in a moment of uncontrollable rage. Others speculated it was a premeditated plan executed with chilling precision. But without Rajeev in custody, no one could be sure. What was certain, however, was that 2 lives had ended in tragedy, and a third, Rajev's, was now a mystery that no one could explain. The manhunt for Rajeev Khanna grew into a national obsession. News outlets broadcasted daily updates, speculating wildly on his whereabouts. Some claimed he had fled to Nepal through an unguarded border crossing. Others insisted he was hiding somewhere along India's vast western coastline, perhaps preparing to leave by boat. A few believed he had taken his own life, unable to live with the guilt of what he had done. Despite the police's best efforts, there was no trace of him. No surveillance footage, no financial transactions, no digital footprints. It was as if Rajeev had evaporated into thin air. Weeks passed. Tips poured in from across the country, but none proved credible. Every potential lead brought disappointment. The public, once sympathetic to Rajeev's success story, now viewed him with equal parts curiosity and suspicion. His face appeared on wanted posters, online forums, and evening talk shows. Still, the case felt unfinished, too clean in some ways, too perfectly executed. Detectives began to wonder if Rajeev had help. Their suspicions gained ground when a discovery was made nearly 2 months later. In the quiet coastal town of Daman, a fisherman stumbled upon a large, rusted suitcase washed up on shore. Inside was a set of bloodied clothes, a burnt cell phone, a wallet containing Rajeev's identification, and a handwritten journal sealed in a Ziploc bag. The suitcase looked like it had been thrown into the sea intentionally, possibly from a boat. Forensic teams confirmed the blood matched Arjun Malhotra's. The discovery stunned the nation. The journal was chilling. In a series of organized, methodical entries, Rajeev had chronicled his descent into rage and betrayal. He detailed how he followed Meera and Arjun, the exact moments he decided to act, and the meticulous planning behind each murder. But one line stood out above all, asterisk, I couldn't have done it without Dev. Asterisk, Dev Sharma was Rajeev's cousin, a quiet man in his early 30s who had worked in the background of the Khanna business empire for years. Most saw him as harmless, soft, spoken, and intensely loyal. He handled paperwork, signed off on logistics, and stayed out of the spotlight. No one had ever connected him to anything sinister. But now he was at the center of the investigation. When authorities tracked him down in Pune, Dev appeared calm but anxious. Under interrogation, he eventually confessed. He admitted to helping Rajeev dispose of evidence, arranging transportation, and erasing surveillance footage. He insisted he hadn't committed any murders but acknowledged that he knew what Rajeev had done. He also claimed he didn't know where Rajeev had gone after the night of Meera's death. Rajeev, he said, had planned his disappearance alone and had left no trace, not even a final goodbye. Dev's arrest gave police partial closure, but it also raised more questions. Did Rajeev really escape? Was he dead? Or was he still out there, watching from the shadows, waiting for the world to forget? To this day, Rajeev Khanna's fate remains unknown. His story has become part of Mumbai's dark folklore, an intelligent man who built an empire, watched it collapse through betrayal, and vanished after orchestrating one of the most shocking double murders in recent history.